Thank you so much, saints. Tonight we shall read in the book of 2 Kings, chapter 5, from the first verse. I'll read. It says here, now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man of honor. He was an able man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given him victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper. And the Syrians had gone out on a raid, and he had brought back a captive woman, girl, from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. Then she said to the mistress, Then she said to the mistress, if only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy. And Naaman went on in and told his master. He said to his master, thus said the girl who is from the land of Israel. Then the king of Syria said, go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel. So he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver and 1,000 shekels of gold, and then 10 changes of clothing. Then he brought the letter to the king of Israel. Now he advised when later he came. I'm sorry, where I'm reading for here is a bit, my glasses are, I just lost my glasses, so I can't see properly. But anyway, let me stop there. We are told of Naaman. Everybody knows the story of Naaman, and who was a king of Syria. Syrians were very victorious and famous on making raids. They constantly made raids to many other nations that were in the surrounding areas. Now, there was a commander. This commander was a Syrian. But we know the story of the Syrian commander who was called Naaman. He had a problem. Leprosy was his problem. But before the Syrian king, he was a very great man. He was a very brave soldier. They describe him here as a man of valor. If you try to find out the meaning of the word valor, it talks about someone who's very brave in a battle. He was very brave and very successful in everything that he did. He was so successful such that the king liked him and was willing to do anything to help him to cure the disease that he had. But here is a situation when they had gone to raid. They captured among them a small girl, an Israeli girl. She was working in the house for Naaman's wife. This little girl realized that the master had a problem. The master was sick, and she secretly went to her boss and told her and asked why. Actually, he asked why he wouldn't actually go to Israel and find someone who could help him with his leprosy. Naaman's wife did not hesitate going to Naaman and advised Naaman to go to Israel and find the prophet that would heal him. It so happened that the king heard about it and agreed to the idea that he should go and get treatment in Israel. That's where we read the story of him getting the pieces of silver and giving him all that he needed to go and get treatment. I'm not going to read the story of Naaman right down, but my gist of the story is about this captive young girl. What I understand by a captive is someone who has no rights. What I understand also about a captive is someone who is a prisoner, someone who works against her will, someone who's made to separate with their parents and their friends. Because she was captured, I would expect her to be someone who was so scared and would never say anything, but a very miserable person. But I'm taken aback by the bravery that this girl had. She didn't lament what she was going through as a slave girl, but instead she realizes and feels sympathy for her boss. As a prisoner, she is sympathetic not to herself but to the boss, to his captor, actually, someone who captured him, because she realizes that he is very sick. Instead of wishing this man to get even more sick because he had captured him, she feels that this man needs help and approaches the wife of Naaman and asks her to take him to someone that he knows, to the prophet, that he knows that he would get help. Again, I want to go back to talk about this captive. That captive could be myself, it could be anyone who is working elsewhere today. It could be, you could be a domestic worker. According to me, I'm imagining a domestic worker, but not just a worker, but a captive, someone who is made to work against their will. It could be someone who's working in the garden. It could be someone who's working in a restaurant, a servant, who does not care only about himself, but also cares about the person who's oppressing him, and then refers the master who captured her from her family to get healed. To me, she is an epitome of someone who's got a spirit, a God-driven spirit that tells her to save others. Meanwhile, she is in prison. She realizes that her master or her captor needs help. Perhaps he needs help more than her. Even if she is captured, but she sees a bigger problem with his captor and therefore refers him to a prophet because she sees the need of the prophet. I'm therefore wondering, if I see the need by the people that I work with, If I see my master's need, wherever we are working, we could be teachers, you could be a doctor, you could be someone working in a house. Do you realize what they need? Do you realize the need of your employer? Do you realize the need of a friend that you interact with every day? And when you realize it, are you referring them to the prophet? Or you simply don't care because they are employing you, they are paying you small wages, little wages, you're not getting enough, and therefore you don't care. It's their fault. But I learned something from this great young girl who is a prisoner, but realizes a greater need by the people who captured her and refers them to the prophet. I'm talking of the prophet Jesus Christ. Are we referring our friends or our employers or those that we interact with on a daily basis to the prophet? Or we don't care whatever they're suffering from, whatever is lacking in their lives? But this young girl sets a great example of someone who sees need, someone who is in need more than her. Meanwhile, she is in prison. I'm hoping this evening we learn the same lesson that I'm learning from this young lady who was captured. I'm hoping that we learn a great lesson as to what we would do or what we are doing at our respective activities on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly period with those that we interact with. Are we referring them to the prophet, or we just keep quiet, or we just yearn and wish they would suffer because they have wronged us or they captured us, or they are giving us less than we would want them to give? She sets a very good example of an Israel girl. So it is my prayer that wherever we are, we should be good examples of this young Israeli girl. May God bless the reading of his words.